Uh,
Yeah, we can do that. Well, Sarita, I'm so excited we get to chat. We've been chatting for so long, for so many years, so frequently, and now we get to record it, which is fun. And there's so much about you that is so amazing, and you are so interesting. Your story is, and I still don't, I probably know a little smidgen of it, and I know a little bit, a fair bit. So it's, do you want to introduce yourself and how do you want to introduce yourself? How would you explain who you are and what you're here to do?
mm. Well, first of all, I love chatting with you. Every single time I get on the phone with you, I just remember how much I miss, um, interacting with great people who feel joyful, even in the midst of personal
Crazy.
chaos, external chaos. So,
Yeah.
um, and God, when did we meet? Do you remember what the
I
year
don't
was?
know. I think it was 2000. Oh, I think it was 2019.
Yeah, it was. It was,
2019.
yeah, it was at the beginning of 2019. I'll have to go back and look. Yeah, so here we are, 2023, and we're still talking about the same things that we were talking about in 2019.
Yeah.
So, my story, as I told you way back when, I'm first generation. My parents were born in India, and my dad came over here in the 60s, early 60s, as the only kid in the village. He was chosen to come to America to get a higher degree because the grandparents owned a lot of land in India, farming land. And they knew that they had to send somebody to America to get those three little letters after their name
Oh,
in order to participate in a political storm that they saw happening, right? A political storm where farmers were losing their rights. So it's just interesting because so my dad came here 1960. They sent my mother over here in 1964. So the little village girl with no education, they could write on her bio that, she lived in the United States. They got pregnant with me. I was born in June of 1965. And um, their visas were running up and it was time for them to go, which they wanted to do. They were both super excited that they had the time here. My dad got his degrees and they went to go get my visa and they needed to get immunization shots for me. And what happened was they had just changed the vaccine rules from 3 months old to 12 months. So they couldn't get me a visa. And it was devastating, um, especially for my dad. And so the part of my story is my dad thought it might be a really good idea to flush me down the toilet and pretend like I was never born, because that's sort of kind of what you do in India. If you have a problem, you can, getting rid of a kid is not such a big deal.
wow.
So I know
Well,
that's not.
why were they already not for vaccinations? Like, how come that, where did that come from?
So, it's funny because I'm doing some covert investigation on this, but my birth certificate um, marked my race as white
Okay.
instead of brown or black. So, believe it or not, that vaccine change was for white babies only. So, if they had
Oh,
marked my birth certificate brown, I would have been given the vaccine.
wow.
Yeah.
I love these little things that they just put in. No one knows, no one asks questions because you don't know to ask the question. But yeah, this has
You
been
don't
happening
know.
forever. Yeah.
And one might say, "Oh my God, Sarita, what are you saying? That they had something against, um, you know, the your culture or your skin color?" And I said, "No." I said, "If you think about it, a birth certificate is a form, and there's somebody sitting at the desk filling out the form. And they probably have a bunch of pre-printed forms like that say city, Santa Monica, California, the race, is already, there's a bunch of data fields that are already filled out. This is what I think, because I'm a data inputter also. And so whoever's inputting the name is just putting in the birth name, the parent's name, the weight, all that, and everything is already pre-filled. That's the way I can justify how a mistake would be made like that, because the names of my parents are Manu Bai Gordon Bai Patel, and my mother's Madhuben Manu Patel, right? That's not white back
No.
then.
Yeah. 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 It's pretty
But
obvious.
it's pretty obvious, but if you're going fast and you're just a data inputter, not to degrade them, but it's probably just a minimum wage job, I could see how a mistake like that would be made, right?
So your dad didn't tick white. It just automatically generated white. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So back then, the birth certificate was generated by the hospital. Well, I think it still is. And then you review it to make sure it's correct, and then, you sign it. But, I am doing a little bit of investigation, just going back to the whole vaccine. So, when you ask me what my story is, obviously I'm alive. So my dad was not successful in flushing me down the toilet.
Thank, all the stars.
And it's really because my mother was brilliant in finding the right person to talk to my dad, to just make it seamless. I think the Indian culture is one that my dad followed whatever the authorities told him to do. He didn't even think for himself. He's definitely a product of follow the leader. He's a dutiful, good student, which is probably why.
You're going through the system when he came to America and going to get his university degrees. Do you think that it did that even more, like put him made him stop thinking, critically thinking or emotionally thinking? Do you think that had a part in it?
I mean, I've asked my dad that question, but I do think it reinforced whatever, let's just call it programming,
Yeah.
right? And I definitely know they chose my dad to come because they knew he would go back.
Okay.
Right? He wasn't going to be such a thinker that he'd say, well, hey, maybe I want to stay here, right? They knew he would follow the rules and go back.
Yeah.
So, a further response to your question is, yeah, I do think that just going from that pretty rigid Indian system, right, to the American system was just reinforced any kind of follow the leader thing. Now, my mother was not that way. So she did not have any education, I think second grade in India. So she was pulled out of the education system because I think they identified her as a critical thinker, independent thinker. And so pulling her out of school, which is also typical, it can happen, meant that she didn't have any opportunities to further her independent thinking. So it's interesting how those two got together,
Yeah, I'm the same. My grandparents, I don't know about my nonna, but my nonna only went to year 3.
Ooh.
And I think even on the other side, they're not educated. They're not educated in the system, but yet, it's amazing. It's amazing. All right, so you're still here, which is fantastic.
Well, I'm still here, and it's interesting because the person who my mother, as she organized who's going to talk to him, was a female doctor named Shati Seth, who at the time was practicing at Mount Sinai. So, if she's there and she's an Indian woman, that means she's pretty darn sharp.
Yeah.
And she knew that my dad was just being a young, impatient young lad. So she said, Manulal, it's only a few months. Just wait. What's the big deal? And he said, but I said I was going to go back. And she goes, you're going to go back. Just wait a few months. Then she can get the vaccine and then you go. So it was done. He was like, oh, okay. So, yes, I'm still here, and they gave birth to another daughter 13 months later, and then, life happens,
So they
right?
never
But
went back.
they never went back for permanent reasons, and part of it was good because my dad had a job, so he could send money back, um, and it all made sense. It just they let it unfold.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah. So, but my parents do say over and over and over again, as I was growing up, the only reason we are in America is because Sarita. So there was a big burden on my shoulders in a way,
You didn't go back to the family because of you.
right?
Wow. Wow.
So
Oh,
what's this? The story is, wow, this universe is so unbelievably organized in its own way, right?
Yeah.
Where
Takes you on an adventure when you just follow it. Like you just can't plan this stuff. It's so amazing.
you can't plan it.
Cannot plan it. It's just fun. And even the way that we met, which is just so random. So
Well, so
random.
first of all, one of the things that we're going to talk about is like social media and education, right? And the screen addiction. So it is sort of funny that we met on social media, which meant you busted. You were on social media. How long were
Busted.
you on?
I'm not, and so I hadn't been on, I think I had Facebook. And then I did this thing where I was like, that's it, I'm over it. I'm going to take a break. And then I never went back. And it was 8 years that I didn't have social media. So in that time, the Instagrams came up, the Snapchats, like, so I didn't have any social media for 8 years. And then I left my job and I was creating my own thing. And everyone's like, you need social media. And I'm like, but I don't like it. So I gave it a year, and that's the year that we met. And then I was offered again for a couple of years, and then I've only just come back in the last 4 weeks. So it was a very small window that I was actually on social media when we met.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I think I can't remember if I knew that or not, because see, I was never on social media until then. So for whatever reason, I was too busy in my job to even have social media, but I was
Yeah.
aware of what was happening with other people. I just didn't have time to have a Facebook account or anything like that. It's not how I connected.
Yeah. And that's how I found. I was like, I'm so into human connection. I felt my energy drain that year that I was on there. I was like, I just felt, don't like the energy from it, which now, the more I know now is like, because it is energetic, we're all energy. So it makes all sense now, but that's why I've been able to put in boundaries now. And I've got people helping me. I've got a person helping me with some of the social media, so I'm not in it. But anyway, we met, so that's amazing. And we
But
met through me posting. I just watched The Social Dilemma, and I put
right.
out a post going, who wants to talk about this? Because I was like, this is so interesting. Like someone is, who was it? Tristan Harris, who you had met. Anyway,
Hmm.
you tell the story.
Well, okay, so now it's funny that I live in Marin County, California, which is probably one of the more heavily funded counties in America for anything that has to do with protecting children, having the best education, right? So I just say that because, it's a wealthy county that has access to a lot. And so I had to find somebody in Australia to talk with. I couldn't find anyone here
They all
because
love the social media. They all love it. They're like, so good. I'm like,
I love
no.
it. So that's one. But yeah, so um, when I met Tristan Harris, they had a position as chief of staff that they were looking for a chief of staff at Center for Humane Technology.
That's it. Yeah.
And somebody had told me about it, and I was like, oh yeah, I need to go check them out. That's where I'll go. That they're totally aligned with me, right? Um, and I think just much like everything I've fallen into, when I met them, um, the name is really great, the Center for Humane Technology, right? And they were talking about doing social dilemma. And you know, just like anything I walk into, I always say that what I do is I go out there and I meet people and I confirm some assumptions that I have, biases or ideas. And if those assumptions aren't correct, then I course correct my own self. So I was really holding my feet to the fire in terms of being aware of what was going on and not holding on to any sort of judgment, just being
Mhm.
open.
Mhm.
So even with the Center for Humane Technology, you know, they were telling me about social dilemma, and when I heard about it and saw it for the first time, I guess I just felt that the film was really great, and this is what I told you the first time I met you, but there was no solution.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it was more of a fear. It definitely a very successful, you need to worry about this,
Yeah.
um, right? Be concerned, but there weren't any real solutions to it.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I
Which is
thought,
which is the thing about creating more fear in this world of like, because that's we feel feed off the fear, which keeps our vibration low. So is it just another one of those? We look like we're doing the right thing. We're really generating fear. Yeah, is that it?
yeah, I think that is it. And I don't think people are even conscious that they're doing it. And that
Yeah.
doesn't mean ignorant or that they don't know. It just means that I think the level of programming in our media, in our education, in our fundraising, in almost everything is so brand and logo oriented that it's really hard to navigate while you're taking care of yourself, your
Mhm.
family, you know, if you
Yeah.
have a family, whether it's parents, relationships, just in general. You know, it's, I always say, I feel like we're in a pinball machine and you got to be really careful with your levers because
Yeah.
so, yeah, I was really sadly disappointed because I get so excited about these organizations. And you know, again, I don't know what they're doing right now, but at the time, one of the things that I had spoken to them about was the experiment that I had done with my son when he was a freshman in high school.
I love this story. I love what you did. Tell us.
Well, so my
What's
son was starting.
freshman? I get confused. I get so
Oh,
confused with your freshman, your college. What's freshman? What year is that?
so freshman here in America is first year. So
Of high
first
school.
of high school. Mhm.
Okay.
So the way he went to school was kindergarten through eighth grade was in one school,
Okay.
eight, and then high school was another four
Oh,
years.
high school's year 9.
Yes.
Ah, see, here it's year 8, and then they've just changed it to year 7. So now high school's year 7 here.
Oh,
Yeah. And
wow.
you go from 5 years old. You go to reception, or I call it reception, preschool, at 5 years old.
Well,
Yeah.
so
So they're in high school at year 7, which is so young.
so young.
And then they're which when they're about 12, 11 or 12 years old, and then they're there till 17, which is year 12, 18.
17. Wow.
Okay, so he's in year 9. How old is he?
So he is, let's see. So I should have done this math before we got on the call, but let's see. So that was in 2017 minus 2002. So 15.
He was 15. Okay.
Yeah, for him, he was 14, turning 15 that year. So what happened right before that? So, right. So he's starting his first year in high school at a private high school that he had to apply to, cost a shitload of money.
Which is a whole nother story, I think, of why he went to that school that you didn't want him to go to. But there's a whole nother story there that maybe we'll talk about another time, because that's another big space, isn't it?
It is, and we won't talk about it now because it kind of does need to be separated if you can.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he started, and um, I'd already been really concerned about the amount of time he was spending on his phone or his iPad or his video games. So we got a divorce when I got a divorce from my husband when he was probably 10 years old.
Mhm.
And there'd been problems before that. So our house was in a lot of, confusion and chaos. But ten was about the time that he started going back and forth between households. And that's when I noticed I was working full time, right? And so I would be at work and come home, and I had a babysitter, and I just noticed he was on his devices all the time. And I had a little come to Jesus with myself where I just said, what am I doing here? Right?
Mhm.
He's on the thing all the time, makes my life easier because I'm on the phone all the time also with work. Work
Mhm.
doesn't shut off when you leave the office. It literally continued
Yeah.
till
And
sometimes
your
midnight.
job was like next level.
Yeah, so at that time I was working for uh, a gentleman called Johnny Ive, who was the chief designer for the iPhone.
Okay.
Okay. So at that time, and
Wow. So you're actually in it, and then you're watching your son be in it. All the
well,
repercussions of what you're creating, what who you're working for is creating, and how it's
exactly. But you can see, like, I think we're all in this dilemma, right? Because many of us have these jobs where that's our ability to earn income, support our families, right? And if we really, squint our eyes and go, well, what are they making anyway? Right? And is this good? It's really easy to turn the other eye, which I did for a bit,
yeah.
because I just thought, just relax, Sarita. You don't know everything. Right. So again, it was a moment to stop judging and say, okay, what is going on here? And honestly, the thing I really what stopped me was we would have these design meetings on the weekends because that's what was for I was helping build a house for him. And so because he worked Monday through Friday mostly, we would have our design meetings for this construction project on the weekends because it was convenient for him. So the interior decorator, the contractors, the engineers, everybody would, get organized for a Saturday meeting. And sometimes we would have to bring our kids because we didn't have childcare. And what I noticed at one of the meetings was all of our kids, and when I say our kids, the people who were on staff to build this house, our kids would sit in the corner with their iPads or Game Boys, right, while we were working. And Johnny's kids were sitting at the table with us, helping design the structure. And they were so unbelievably attentive, and they participated. They had unbelievable manners. And I thought to myself, what is going on here?
On, so I was going to ask you that because I've heard that about Steve Jobs. His kids weren't allowed to have any devices, and you're living and breathing it, seeing it in real time that they're not allowing their own children to have it.
It's not even the word allow, it's just not even introduced. So it never even becomes a question of deprivation, right?
Mm,
They've
love it.
never smoked the cigarette. So they don't know what that craving is like. So,
Mm.
and I think that's a really important distinction, right? That it allowed. We set rules on how much time is allowed, and there's a huge punitive component when we try to um, create some boundaries, and there was none of that.
What are they doing? What are the kids doing watching all your kids on it? Are they asking questions about it, or why do you think they're not saying? That's what I hear parents asking. They're like, yeah, but they see other kids on it and then they want it. It's what are his kids doing?
Well, his kids at the time were going to a Waldorf school. And so the whole emphasis from kindergarten there, it's part of their mission statement that it is a tech free environment because they
Okay.
feel so strongly that those early years developmentally need to be focused on the arts and on skills and kindness and, how do you build things? How do you build a community? So it's, you know, it's
They're
totally,
educated on why they're doing what they're doing as well, the why behind it versus, just being
yeah,
told you can't have it. They understand
they
what.
understand the whole component of healthy human development. So
Wow.
again, it's not even a question about allowance. Right when you get in, you're already signing a treaty and a commitment that, yeah, this is one of the things that we know is not going to be available. So even like, say, for example, I have a kid that goes, say my kid goes to the Waldorf and his best friend goes to the public school, right? We've seen that sort of separation with the kid who might not have technology in their world or their sphere, and they might be considered weirdos. And we've heard
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. 100%.
So there's that, but that's why this commitment in these small groups is so, like, it's about the development. So the word keeping it away from them, they don't talk about that. So again, when you're in a mindset where you're just growing things, and you want to seek out that unique genius in every single individual, and when those unique traits are sort of just flourishing with the other ones, then you have this garden that is just unbelievable,
Well,
right?
there's a quote that says genius is as common as dirt. Because we're all geniuses. We have just not been put into situations or have experiences where we're able to find that gift, that genius, because we've been through a system that does not nurture that. So,
Yeah, and a system doesn't nurture it. It doesn't nurture it because that's not what its mission is. So if you look at like that particular Waldorf school, and I say, clearly they have the whole mission statement is clear. Again, those Waldorf schools started far before that technology was developed, right? So they had other issues, whatever they were, whether
yeah,
it be music or, just what skills. So again, when our public schools and our private schools started to take on a very, what I believe to be, and we've heard it now the proof is out there, another direction, which was not for development, but using words about, we're here, we're a close knit environment. We want these kids to be educated. Yes, they do want them to be educated, which is like just brainwashed or
yeah,
programmed.
just completely indoctrinated to what they want. And what I love about that story as well, lots of it in that small little story, is that he's got his kids at the table with him, experiencing real life, which is how we learn best, is through experience. You can't sitting in a room and going, okay, we're going to build a house, is nothing compared to sitting in a meeting, hearing what people are saying, looking at the drawings, maybe getting a say, where do you want your room to be? Like, that is the ultimate. And obviously they understand that, and
Yeah,
they
they
can
understand
make you a
it.
part of it.
Yeah, and their whole, as a family unit, you can imagine they're a beautiful family, right? So the kids weren't the center of attention. They had to raise their hand if they had a question, right? And they would sit there for hours while we're talking about doorknobs and switch plate locations or foundations. How boring, right? But they were not bored because they had already gotten a foundation of being curious about, you know, how something is created.
And
Whereas
it fits into context. All those boring bits actually they're like, but we know this is building. They know how those little bits fit into the whole context of what they're talking about. Where school's teaching you little bits, we're like, but what does that mean? How does that fit into the big scheme? But they're living how that really comes together.
yeah, and I like the way you said that because everything is how it fits together, right? So again, I would when I my if my kid had to sit at the table, I don't think he would have been able to sit there for 5 minutes before he said, "Ugh, Mom, this is so boring." I
Yeah.
think I've seen him do it.
Yeah. Well, because he's had all the prior phone time, which we, most of us should know by now about how addictive that is, and stimulation and hyperstimulation and all the things. No wonder they just can't sit there now. But if you've, like you said, it's not even not being allowed. They don't even know. These kids, Jimmy, is it Jimmy? Jimmy's kids don't know
Johnny.
Johnny.
Yeah, they don't know what's going on over there. So that's what I thought was so beautiful. These kids would come with their colored pencils and their book, right? Because if we had to go on a walk or something, then they had options, right? But all their options were really fantastic. Not like my son, who his options are, can we go and get ice cream next? And, I love my kid, but this is the reality, as I'm looking at this going, okay, so I'm spending how much of my salary on these distractions to help me do my job better, right? Pay attention to what I'm doing. And all I'm really basically doing is shoving him into a hole, helping him get further addicted to something that is not helping him developmentally.
So was that one of being at those meetings and seeing that, was that a trigger to like, something's not okay?
That was one of many.
One of many. Do you know, just before you go into the many or the next step of this experience, do you know of anyone else that was in that room or that was working with Johnny and like that did the same thing you did? Did anyone else see the polarization of the kids?
Well, one of the designers, who happened to be a female, her kids were there too. And, I would say to her, I said, do you see what's going on? Because we were both mothers juggling highly stressful jobs and families. We both loved our families. And I said, do you see this? And she goes, I can't deal with another thing. She goes, I wish I could. If I think about it, like I'm going to lose my mind. I will disappoint the client. And I got it, right? So she was under such a huge amount of stress with everything because she is juggling being an excellent mom, an attentive mom, right? And an excellent and attentive contributor to this project. And so I just saw the angst, right? And as you know me now, I'm just like, yeah, well, I got to figure this one out because this is really bugging me.
But I reckon there's so many parents that would definitely resonate with your friend, because I can see it in the conversations I'm having that I can't take on anything else. Like, so we get it.
Yeah. And so, that look of horror and desperation in her face, and I loved this woman, she was an unbelievable professional, so talented, and just a good person, right? And that's when I decided, a few weeks later, to have a conversation with Johnny about Apple giving the world permission to put the device down, not away, just down. And so it went something like this. I don't know if you noticed, but I don't think there's a person I know who's not struggling with themselves, with their partner, with their children, with their friends, and with the what was it? I don't think there's a person struggling with their relationships now that these devices have entered the room. And so this was like what, 2016. And he said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, I think Apple has an opportunity here, to give the world permission, because unless Apple gives permission to people, nobody's going to put their device down. They're too attached. And when I say nobody, I'm generalizing. Okay.
Yes.
I said, they need permission. Right. And he said, well, and I said, I think Apple could make $1 billion on this. It wouldn't cost very much. And I think the whole world would just be like, thank you, thank you, thank you. It might send sales, through the roof. And then we could even think about how that's actually done. And He said something like, well, that's an interesting idea, but I don't think the shareholders will like it.
Mm-mm.
And I said, well, of course they're not. But even when I said that, I at that moment, I really did not comprehend how much the shareholders' positions played in so much of everything, right? It's about the shareholders are the people that you report to. So even though this was a great idea, it wasn't going to be in alignment with what the aligned profits were going to be.
But it is actually his disalignment or unalignment with what he's doing and what he believes is right, because he's not following the narrative that Apple are pushing of, here's your phone, always be on it, because he's not giving it to his kids. So he to me, it sounds like he obviously knows that it's not good.
Well, again, it depends on, these words are really important, right? Just like that last one when I said allow, the word allowance
Yeah,
or
yeah.
not allowed. So in this not good, I don't know if he would actually say it's not good because he's a designer, right? He's not an engineer. So I don't even know if they know all the ins and out. I think it's as needed. Like oh, right. So I don't, his job was to design a very slick looking product. Whether it was addictive or not is you can learn how to forget about that, right? Especially if it's not in your world. So
But
even if you,
you're consciously making a decision not to give it to your kid, though. So then you would know it's not
they're not
serving them.
they're not consciously making a decision not to give it to their kid. It's their life doesn't revolve around a product that is going on sale May 15th. They're doing other things. They're sailing, they're farming, they're reading, they're painting, right? So the makeup of their family isn't even set up where those kids would say, oh, I want to get that, right? So they're not reading the same magazines, they're not getting the same advertising exposure at school, right? So if we, and this again, I'm just talking off the cuff. I just don't think it's like if you're growing up in the south of France, it's not like you're asking your parents for Doritos, even though they sell it at the shop. It's just like it's way over there because you're eating good food all the time. So
Yeah.
even if you try a Dorito once, you're not going to ask for it. So it's like that nature of that kind of product doesn't enter. Now, I'm not going to say that those kids don't know what it is. They do. And I'm sure that the talk was had that said, there's a lot of things about this that we don't know yet, and we're testing it out. But there's so many good things with it too, and that's why we
But even
market.
saying that, we're testing it out because he knows that they don't know the damage it's going to do. He is part of those conversations because he's working in that environment to know that, to have that, where it's just being shelved out to the everyday human and just been going, this is the new fanciest thing, not knowing that they're being better tested on.
Well, exactly. And when you think about all the computers and things like that, and if you go back to the magazines, all the big magazines in every country, right? When a new technology comes out that is in the form of progress, right? You can do this faster. We consumers have now become accustomed to to having those things that make our life easier, right? And so that is a unbelievable technique. They've sold progress is, put a bow on it and you can sell anything, progress technology. So
Well,
again,
you just saying, sorry, Sarita, you just saying consumer is the best possible way to explain that, because that's going back to the school system. The school system is created to turn us into employees who go and work for people so we can't be free entrepreneurs, and to turn us into consumers. So we are,
well,
it
that's
is
it.
there to, the evidence is there, the history is there, to show, you know, we don't even need to indoctrinate you into consumerism, because we get you not to think at all and let marketing do its magic.
Exactly. And you won't even know it.
You won't even know it, which is
And
the
that's,
beauty of it for them, but
yeah,
not great for us that are unaware.
it's a brilliant plan. And the great thing about all this is, they stick with the plan and they just tweak it, right? And the data that shows if somebody wanted to listen to us and go, "Oh my God, what are you saying? Like, that's not me," then that's fine. It might not be you, but it might be you.
Mhm.
And that's what I did. I sat there and I said, "Wait a minute. Am I a consumer and I just don't know it?" And I had to have those really,
Mhm. Mhm.
important self reflections and look, and it was pretty darn ugly in my
Yeah.
own life, because I realized everything that I had in my home was around accommodating me getting to work, right? And also just entertaining my son so I didn't have to discipline him. And I'm not saying I didn't discipline him. It's just that when you look at your time, it just got really easy for me to go, yeah, you can play with it for another 15 minutes. And he knew, I think he started to get really aware that I was going to forget about that 15-minute because I was still on the phone with work.
They know, you know, like all of them, like they're so cool in that respect though, because they work you out. They're like, if I push it just a little bit more, I know what a snapping point is. I can just,
Totally.
yeah, it's cool. I like it on their part of it. I'm like, it's
Oh,
funny.
well, and my son, we can get into this, but he'd always be like, "Ah, you always say that," right? He's so funny because every kid is different. But mine would call me out on my shit, with my stuff all the time. And he was just like that. That's where I just said, he's too smart for me to let this slip through the cracks.
So then you made the decision to start to look at what was happening, and then what happened?
Well, so we could break this up into segments, right? Let's just say one day he was outside with his buddies and I decided to look at his phone and I saw how much business was being done on Snapchat. And so Snapchat back then, 2016, 2017, was like the new tool, and pictures would disappear, messages would disappear, but it was literally the way these kids were communicating. So when I saw some things like naked pictures and
Yeah,
just the volume of time that he was on, I didn't even know what Snapchat was.
yeah, yeah.
I'd heard about it, but I was like, I don't know what it is. That it was just that moment, right? That divine moment where I said, I was given permission to just go, ooh. And I'd already been thinking about, how am I going to do this? Like, I don't want it to be a punishment. We'd already been talking about things like at school, things like, let's have a digital weekend free, right? And I was just seeing,
As the phone dings in the background. Yeah.
right. But I was noticing that these little short-term stints away from the phone were not going to present and create long-term solutions. I thought, if you look at this like addiction, right? And if it truly is an addiction, which it could be just because it's not a drug, an addiction doesn't have to be a drug. It could be shopping, it could be sex, it can be anything that has control over you
Yeah.
is an addiction.
Yeah.
So I thought, now I had been to rehab with another client's children. And so I learned quite a bit about rehab programs. And so I decided to use that backdrop as a foundation of how I was going to deal with this. And so any good rehab doesn't take 3 days or 3 weeks. It's like literally a lifetime commitment. So I decided I needed to make a plan for how I was going to do this with Nick. And so the initial plan was, what were the 3 things that were really important to me that he was missing out on? And they were, I felt like his grades were slipping already in freshman year. and it was a school that he was so excited to go to, right? He wanted to do really well. We came up with some goals for him before he started, and he was just like, I'm so grateful I'm here. Like, I just can't believe it. And I was like, okay. And so all the right stuff was happening. But as soon as he got into it, and, that's what school does, he started getting slacky about it. So the three things that were most important to me was I saw him losing a passion for things like just playing and going outside. Um, I saw a lack of passion for anything except the device.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. The
I
level
also
of
saw,
commitment to the device versus going outside. It's like
I mean,
the
I remember
commitment is there. Like,
well, I couldn't believe it. I said, look at where we live. It's going to take you 10 minutes to walk to one of the most beautiful trails in the world. Like, that's your backyard. And he's
yeah.
like, oh, I'll go later. I'll go later. And I just thought, oh, wow. Okay. And I'm not a super athlete or a nature junkie. I appreciate it, but we do pay a premium to live in nature. And he was literally not into it, interested at all. So that's one, no passion. Now he would say, "Oh, I have passions, mom," but from my perspective as a mother, I didn't see it. Second one was he was just getting snarkier and snarkier with me,
Mhm.
and I'm not one of those parents that demands, respect just because I'm the mother. I think respect is reciprocal, and I thought, if he's getting this way with me, he's got to be talking to other people like this. So I wanted his gratitude, his idea of what you respect and what you don't respect. To I just thought that needed some work, some addressing. And then the third one was, like I said, his grades were slipping. So his grades were slipping. He had no outside passions, and his respect and gratitude were diminishing. And so this was just early in the first 2, 3 months of freshman year. So I sat down with him and I said, look, um, I'm going to give you some consequences if you don't get your grades up, if you don't like sort of make your bed every day. I made it really easy. If you don't do these simple chores, then I'm going to have you take a break from your phone, and I'm going to take it away for 3 weeks. And he was like, rolls his eyes like my mom has said this 100 times. So those were easy ones, right? He didn't make his bed. His grades started slipping, and he was just rude, wasn't helping with dishes. So I was like, okay, checked. And I made him sign a contract. You will lose the phone if you don't do these three things. And so I said, you didn't do these three things. And he said, yeah, I know. And I said, okay, so the phone's going away. And he said, okay. And I said, hand it over. He handed it over. And that's when the hard work really began, because I basically had to put my money where my mouth was. And what I was really dealing with, not in the first 2 days, but I was dealing with the behavior of a drug addict.
Mm, mm. Yeah.
So, if you want to hear, I could tell you the end of the story, or, you tell me, ask me some questions. I mean, I think that sounds like a very typical occurrence in a
Well,
family.
I have this conversation, like you can really see it when people come over. I'm like, no phones on the, for eating, no phones on the table. And trying to get people in my life put their phone down when we're eating, when we're going for a walk. That addict behavior is definitely there, and they just get mad at me. Why? And I'm like, every time you pick up the phone and you're with a person, you're saying to that person then they're not important.
Yeah.
And I get it. It is addictive. It's made addictive on purpose. So what do you do? And I've taken the philosophy of, addiction of, if you're an alcoholic, you take your alcohol out of the house. So For me to not have my phone, I just I go out, I leave it at home. I put it in a different room. It charges in another room. It's not in my bedroom. So I get those addictive behaviors because you have to do it for yourself.
Well, you do. And somebody might hear you. That's why I'm curious. It really put me in a rabbit hole about addiction, right? Because it even made me look at my own behaviors, right? So, things like alcohol are very, very socially acceptable, right?
On
So,
purpose.
on purpose, I mean, every fundraiser that I go to for good causes, the number one item are cases of wine or
Yeah.
bottle or whatever. So these are experiences that are, again, reinforced, whether people know that they're a part of this or not. We can just literally look at it. I mean, they sell alcohol. The alcohol has moved from the dirty corner in the back of the liquor stores. So I'm probably dating myself now, but it used to be that it was in the far way back, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now you walk into Target or any of the big stores and it's right there in the front.
Well, even just when we went through all of that lockdown stuff, you couldn't go anywhere. Everything was shut. People lost their businesses, but the
Mhm.
big supermarkets were open and liquor stores.
Yeah.
It's like, and that's how
Mm.
people dealt with their lockdown, is to drink. But
Yeah.
it was open, and it is and the phone and the devices have got the same connotations about being addictive. And that's why I'm mindful of like being on social media. Is like, when is it too much? Because I know it's addictive. I know why it's been set up. I know who set it up, and it works.
And
It
it's so
works. And I know
good.
it works. So I'm like, what can I put in place? Because I'm no different to anyone else. I'm just I'm just a human like everyone else. I'm just aware. I think that's all I've got going for me, is that I'm aware. And I'm like, okay, what boundaries can I put in place? Because I don't want to be addicted.
Well, that's just it. If you say I don't want to be, right, then that's like the first step of, okay, now you're making a choice. Then, to follow through with that and go, okay, I'm having an urge or whatever, then we're actually feeling what was originally suppressed by the product or the chemical, right? So this is almost like this is painful. So the easier thing is just
And
to,
it totally is that, Sarita, because when you're talking about Nick and like the first few days and the weeks is that real addictive behavior, unless you're able to almost like not be in it and hover above it, I think that's where our power lies, is when you're in something that you're able to like leave that situation or that circumstance and hover above it and go, what am I doing? I'm just mindlessly, you can say to yourself, I am mindlessly scrolling right now. How am I feeling? I'm not feeling good. Like, if we're able to get to that point where we can observe our behavior versus just being in it,
yeah,
we're taking a step out of it. But
absolutely.
the first step is like to, I suppose with what you're saying with Nick, is like, he doesn't know that when you're taking the phone away for him for the first time. He's just like, he's feeling all the feelings.
He's feeling all the feelings and he's a adolescent, right? So he's not analyzing this like we are. And that's one of the things I think a lot of people make the mistake of is, because our kids have been groomed to think that they are very smart much earlier because they're going to school earlier, right? So if the focus is all on academics and achievement, because that is the agenda, right? So then by the time 14, 15 rolls around, even earlier, I mean, I was dealing with this when he was 10, he thinks he's smarter than me. And it's not because he's a brat. It's literally, this is the way he's been conditioned and reinforced by me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm a pretty aware parent. I'm
Mm.
not sitting there patting him on the back, saying, let's go get a trophy or get ice cream because I'm pretty neutral. But, I did reinforce that because I was also a part of the academic school culture, so I
Mm.
had to just go, I'm a part of this. And so what am I going to do? So, like I said, that first 2 days, which seems like nothing, right? It's just 2 days. Um, he's just thinking she's going to give me the phone back. I'm just going to like really make life miserable. And but it wasn't really bad behavior in the beginning because he thought I was just going to give it back.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, I thought about it about 100 times.
You're like, it's just be easier. This is a long game. You've got to play the long game instead of the
Got to
short
play the
term.
long game.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So this would you're making me think I should really write this down, or we should really because I think it. Okay, so I will say also that on the third day, I realized I couldn't handle it. Like he was just getting progressively worse. Like, he'd come home from school and say, everybody hates you at school and they think that you're really nuts, right? And I'd be like, well, that's too bad. And he
But
goes, well,
is it so, Sarita, even him saying that is part of the brainwashing that school does as well, is that because, like, heaven forbid you be outside of what everyone else is like. So that conditioning, that's amazing just in itself. That's what you go to. And adults do it too. We do it to, like, you're different. It's like, that's like the worst possible thing you can be, is different.
different.
So that's amazing that that's so conditioned from such a young age too. Sorry, I just had to comment on that because that's just
Well, I'm
like, wow.
glad you did. I mean, that's okay. So socially, right? So it's not just the
Sarita,
kid.
is that your phone that's going bing, bing? I just want to
Maybe.
make sure it's not anything to do with, I haven't got anything open. Is it yours?
I don't,
Or maybe it's email reminders.
okay. I don't
Is it,
have email reminders on. I
neither do
don't.
I. It is beep, and I'm like, can you hear it? It's like a boo, and I'm like, what is
I
that?
did. I did hear that.
I just want to make sure it's not me.
So, I'm such a tech Luddite now that I don't even know how to turn the settings off. So let's
Yeah,
see
if it's
here.
not anything you can see, that's fine. It's like, I don't know what it's coming from, but I just thought I'd address it because I can hear it. And I'm like, what is it coming from? I don't know what it's from. Anyway,
And it goes off.
we don't know.
It's one of our social media apps. Oh
One
my
of,
God.
like, I got nothing on, so I don't know what it is. But then this is the thing about the conglomerates or whatever it is like, you can have nothing on and it still pops up, isn't it?
Yep.
Like, how's that on? Sometimes things happen. I'm like, what? My computer's not even on. How is that coming through? So I don't know what it is.
I don't know what
Anyway,
it is.
continue on. I just thought if there's something we can do about it, we'll do something, but we don't know what it is.
I don't know what it is. Oh, well, let's see. I think it might be. Okay, so let's keep talking and hope that it doesn't go, but I'll just stare at my thing and try to multitask. So what you just brought up is really important because this is called the social aspect, right? And this is fitting in because it is very important that we as human creatures have a group that we fit into. That's just like such a basic need.
Yeah.
So just by, even if my child knows that I'm not an antisocial person, I go to school, I attend functions. So where he learned to say, everybody thinks you're weird was a very, when I say he's smart because he knew to throw that one out right away.
Yeah.
To see, does my mom care about this? And I said, well, that's too bad. You might want to have them call me. I don't know who it is. Right. And I was and he said, well, it's everybody.
I love it.
And I said, okay.
Extreming it's everyone.
Everybody hates you. So I said, okay, well, we'll see how this goes. But, this is between you and I. It has nothing to do with the school. So he didn't get any reaction out of that one. Right. And there's just so many of these things. I can't fill out my form, which is on the phone. They gave us an app to do this thing. And I said, well, then go to the front office and see if they can give you a piece of paper. And he said, a piece of paper? Oh my God, you think they're going to give us a piece of paper, Mom? Like you're making more work for, Diana or whoever's at the front desk. And she's going to have to treat me like I'm special. And I said, okay. And he goes, really, you're going to really make more work for somebody? And I said, now, again, one might say, God, her son is a brat, right? He's not a brat. He's trying to get his crack back.
Well, and also I'm actually hearing more how much he has been brainwash programmed, whatever it is, that do not question what we do. We're moving everything to an app. We will not be questioned. We will not have things written down. So and they don't even know that they're doing it either, like the schools. Because I've got a friend who's a mum, Rose, and she has asked for everything to be on paper because she can't cross things out on the app, on the electronic, because she wants to cross things out and go, I do not consent, or I want to change this. And you can't do it on the app or on an electronic.
No.
So she has asked everything to be sent to her on paper. But it's the same thing about, there's so much trouble. No, I'm putting my family first. So even that's just another form again of the programming that he probably does feel embarrassed going to ask. It's not, yeah, he wants back his phone, but he feels embarrassed because you'll be made to feel like if you say something or ask for something that's not what everyone else is asking for, there's something wrong with you. It's just in so many layers.
Right. So that social thing, right? Because we are conditioned to be a part of a group.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter where you do it. It's like, even, if we just go backwards right there to that design room table, with the architects and everyone, my partner in this, the designer, she was like, no, I need to keep this job, right? Because in her world, working for a client like this is not, it's really important to build her business.
Mm-hmm.
So, right. And so, yes, everyone, I think, is really innocent in all this. And it's when you gather the awareness, like your friend who, wants everything written. Yeah, you're going to start making some noise, and the immediate kickback is, okay, this is going to create more work, right? And that's another one.
Well, you've got to really do the inner work before you go and do the outer stuff, because you've got to have to be okay and courageous enough to withstand the eye rolls, like all of the things, to be able to persevere through what you know to be best for your kid.
Well, you just said it, you have to do the inner work. So, I didn't just come up with this idea overnight. I was in therapy for like years, because I knew that, and when I say years, when you go through a divorce, and that's one of the bigger, social changes that you can make, because you're basically saying this family doesn't work, and or not, it's just, that was a big change for me, being Indian. I didn't know a lot of Indian people who divorced, and so I just bring that up because that's when it became really important for me to keep digging further, right, into myself and knowing myself more, because now I'm raising a child by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And right, so yes, I didn't just come to this decision overnight. It was something that I was planning, and so I had to really firm up those rudders.
You ready? Before you went in, you're like, I'm ready for this, I can take it.
I did. And I had a little sticky note pad, or a sticky note, in my bathroom, hidden, right? So he didn't see it. And it said, you can do this. You can do this. This is for Nick's best well-being. This is, you are trying to save a human being. You can do this. You can do this. He is going to piss you off 100 times today. He's going to piss you off 200 times tomorrow. So just be ready for it. And I literally had to say this mantra to myself, so that when he did sort of, try to push, I was ready for it. Doesn't mean that it got easy. It did get easier, actually, but it got progressively
First it got hard. First it got hard. It tested you. You have to go through the test.
You really did.
How much do you really want your son to be a better person? How much do you really want it? And you're like, no, I want it. You want it.
Well, and you can imagine, like I said, I want to raise a human being, right, who's an independent thinker and who's capable of thinking critically on his own, right, who can go to school and learn, but who isn't going to be sort of herded by the school or anything, because you could take religion, school, your job, right? There's just pick a number.
Mm-hmm.
And so all these institutions feed off of one another. And yeah, so to cut to the chase, I really realized that this was going to require more of my time in order to do it well. So I had to make a decision and say, how come I don't have enough time to help him develop a passion? Right. And most of the parents said to me, well, he should have his own passion already. And I said, yeah, I think you're right. He should, but he doesn't.
Yeah, but and my understanding about that is like, where are you going to get your passion from when all of your days are filled to the chock-a-block with school, after school activities, the phone? That's the, they need their own time just to be by themselves, just be bored. Like, boredom's such a bad thing now. We actually need to be bored so we can figure out who we are and build on who we already are and find our passions.
Totally. So these are things that people weren't thinking about back then when everything was going really fast. So even if we think about, everything that happened in the last 3 years with COVID, things weren't just like drip, drip. They were bam, 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 bam,
Yeah.
right? Everything was so fast that by the time you get your legs strong, there was another one coming up in terms of fear and all over. So I go back to, I every time things got harder or more socially problematic, which I did have plenty of parents say, you're sort of helping Nick commit social suicide. You know that, right? These are friends of mine.
I don't even understand that argument. It has no basis, considering that we've got a whole generation who was not brought up on a phone or any, you're one of them. I'm one of them too. We had no phones. We adapted quite quickly. Like, we worked it out. That argument does my head in. They're not going to know. The kids aren't going to know. The kids are swiping when they're one. Like, they're going to pick it up.
Right.
You've picked it up. You're in your not you, but, people are in their 70s and 80s and know how to use their phones and their devices and their things. And they had a whole lifetime of nothing tech, and they worked it out. So that you say that, parents come or people come at you and say it's tech suicide, like that. You can see it just does my head. I'm like, there's no basis for that. No basis for that.
Well, I know there's no basis for it. And again, that was an opportunity for me to go, where is this coming from now? Right. And it was really like maybe one of his friends told their parents, Sarita's doing this. She took Nick's phone away. Now it's been 2 weeks. Right.
He's going to be hindered. I think the thing is, people say that to think that the person is going to be hindered if you take it away from it. It's like, yeah. Anyway, continue.
Well, no, I mean, I think these are really good. I want you to ask me because this was before it became a real thing. Yeah. And so I wasn't getting any support. There were articles about it, but not really, I would say I was walking I was walking a pretty lonely walk.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, for sure.
And there weren't a lot of people collected. So that's when
especially where you are you're in a bit of a tech hub. You are.
Yeah, we are. I mean, so everybody, even me, I was finding that I just didn't want to be on my BlackBerry or my iPhone until midnight, just to get caught up for work, right? I was like, I need to find time to put this thing down. So, it was interesting on so many levels, but the social thing was fascinating because in a small private school, I guess how you fit in socially is important to many of the families. And so because it was important to me, but not the overriding gender, I have my own friends, right? So if somebody's going to make a snotty comment about me and how dare I do this, I was able, because I know myself, I was able to just like not take it personally. and really not.
Which is huge to be able to do that, because you say that like, oh, it's easy, but that's not, because that's why people do fold or change their direction, because they haven't done that inner work.
Yeah. So here, you're going to love this one. So Nick would come home every day. I would pick him up, right? Because I loved doing that. And so sometimes I would have his friends in the car, one friend, sometimes two, sometimes it was just Nick alone. And I remember this one time where I'm sure Nick had one of his, he said to one of his friends, just you say something to my mom. She likes you. She'll listen to you. And so his friend said, Sarita, Nick sits by himself at lunch because, he's not on his phone. And I said, okay, so what does that mean? And he goes, well, he's alone. And I said, oh, so what do you guys do? You all sit on your phones at lunch? And he goes, well, yeah. Now, he didn't know this was going to happen. And I said, okay, so Nick is alone physically, but you guys are kind of alone too. I mean, you're still with your phone, you're just in a group pod. And he said, well, no. And I said, well, yeah. And I said, if Nick is alone without a phone, then, he knows he could do his homework, he could read a book, he could take a walk, or he can sit with you guys and watch you scroll on your phone. He doesn't have to sit separately.
Or you could put down your phone and go and talk to your friend.
Well, so guess what happened? A couple days later, somebody said to me, one of the kids, we feel really badly for Nick. And so a lot of us are putting our phones away during lunch to sit with him. And I was like, oh, what a great friend you are. That really shows, that you guys care about each other. And Nick is like, yeah, so now you're punishing all these other kids. And I just started, I made some crack up joke to not give any energy to that.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that's one thing, right? Because now, again, every time goes by and I don't give the phone back, which again, I'm going to say was a temptation of mine almost every day.
Yeah.
That kid ransacked the whole house looking for it. Everyone who knows me knows I'm a terrible hider, right? So I had to get creative with where I was hiding it, because he literally tore the whole house apart looking for it almost every day. And at some point, I did have to take the phone off the premises, because I was like, it's just not safe here. He might get so. I mean, when I say tear the house apart, I could have called the police and had a legitimate complaint.
Wow, so, it looked like you'd been robbed, ransacked.
And that just means that you have to be, now I said to myself, now I have to be more careful about everything of mine, because if he's opening up every drawer, right? It's not that I had anything to hide, but that opens you up to, okay, I can't leave cash in my drawer anymore, right? Because now he might go take it, and which he did. So it's all these things that these young people are going through that I got to experience with, well, I invited it into my house with no playbook, no rule book. It was sort of like, I love this person so much. I've just got to weather the storm. And I'm the adult in the room. And so, so this,
yeah, go.
No, go ahead.
So even when you say that, like you're invited into the room, because there's an argument there that people would say, well, it's up to the tech companies because they're doing the harm and they've done it. Of course, they have, definitely, right? I think that's pretty obvious now that, the way it's created, the algorithms they use, the tech, the hyper stimulation of the sounds and it is there to addict you. But how do you feel about, like, so people just blame? I'm not good on blaming. Like, where do you feel like the parent comes in?
Well, that's a great question. And it's really important because just as we see with today, we can keep blaming everything on our selected politicians, right? But what that does is it basically, I think it absolves people from doing the work, which is
Mm.
structural changes in the world that they want to see. So, yes, we can blame the tech companies, but at the end of the day, we have a choice on where we spend our money. So that social, what your propensity is to be a part of the social system, at the expense of your own health, that's a topic that I think more people need to talk about.
Mm.
I had to sit there and go, yeah, they developed this just like RJ Reynolds developed cigarettes, just like the pharmaceutical companies developed painkillers for legitimate use after surgeries or whatever. What
Antibiotics.
right, antibiotics, you name it. I mean, we could probably have such a huge laundry list of things that they've created for the profit machine that include the number one ingredient, which is addiction. So once you get somebody addicted, and especially the earlier it is, then that's that their model, their business model is to make money. It is
Mm.
not to be a public servant. If they
Yeah,
say they are, then fine, they're lying. But
100%.
right, but that's the thing that, again, the social that I witnessed is, just like when I said Apple has the opportunity to give the world permission to put it down, that was in no way, shape, or form telling them that they created an addictive product. It was their opportunity to say, hey, we want to say, we who created this technology that can make your life easier, we want you to have the conversation in your house about, how this doesn't supersede your human dynamics,
But
right?
they don't want to
But
have that conversation.
no, they're not going to do that.
And I guess we shouldn't wait for them or ask them to do it. We've got to do it ourselves.
We have to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
Yep. And so, I did get very involved with the school. I talked to the headmaster, to Nick's teachers, to his counselor. I said, look, this is what I'm doing. I need your support. And everyone said yes, but they weren't really engaged in this one person's and my experiment,
Yeah.
right? They got a bunch of other kids that they're busy.
Yeah. And they've got their own addictions. The parents that you're asking, or the not parents, but the employees that you're asking are probably
They've got
addicted
so
themselves, and yeah, they're not going to get it.
they're not going to get it. And this is where, I really started to look at, like in this situation, the headmaster of a private school. What the parents love is when a very strong leader, and I say strong, when I say the word strong leader, that's somebody who tells everybody what's going to happen. That is not a person who stands up and says, I want to hear what everybody thinks. And then we're going to come to some sort of, you know, uh, decision that works for the greater whole. That actually takes time. And that's shown as a weakness, a weakness in leadership. A strong leader is somebody who says, this is what we believe, this is what we're doing. They have their bite points. So that's when I really noticed how effective the headmasters of a lot of the schools here were. And I'm sure it's reflective of many
Yeah.
places. And again, not all, but we can definitely see that this is not, I'm not speaking about a minority. This is
No.
so
Well,
obvious
that's
now.
part of the indoctrination of school as well, to just be told what to do.
Yeah.
Look to authority, look to someone outside yourself to know what's best for you, which is just a crazy concept. Why would someone else know what's best for you? Like, you can
Right.
only know that. But that's part of the shutting down of the intuition of the school is made to do that. It's so many not great things, bad things.
Well, and that's what I love about talking with you about this is, you've got such a grounded sense of self. And I know, how many different um, things that you've looked into, books. I mean, the books that we have recommended to each other, right, in this journey, um, have always been in the realm of we are learning more. There's so much that we didn't know, and we went through a school system too, you know.
And accepting as well, like when I say this, like schools indoctrinate, yeah, because I can speak from experience. I went through the system. I can see where I was brainwashed. I admit that I was. And I think the quicker that you're able to take responsibility for that's what's happened,
Yeah.
and you can see it within yourself instead of trying to blame, like, we're just talking about like whose fault is it? It's like at the end of the day, it's no one's fault. Just it is. I just actually is. Like, this is what's happened. We're not trying to convince you. It actually is. This is just the truth.
Yeah.
This is why school was set up. There is a plethora of information out there if you want to do your own research to find that. And you really, like, you shouldn't need to do much research at the moment. It's pretty obvious. Like,
Now it's pretty obvious, and anybody
now
who
it is really obvious. Now
then
it is really obvious. And I just own that. I'm just like, yep, I see that's what it is. I know I've been brainwashed. I know that I've gone through the system. So I take full responsibility now from now onwards.
yeah. God, I mean, every day I notice a layer of the programming, right? So the programming is so unbelievably intelligent, scientific. They've been studying us forever, not just in our life, right? This has been going on since the beginning.
A little bit, they do it a little bit, and then you kind of the generation or the people fight back a bit, and then they're like, I pull back, and then they do a little bit and do a little bit, and so then you get to this now, hundreds of years later, and we're like, oh, it's been going on, we don't even know it.
Yeah.
Question everything now. I'm like, question everything. It's like, I really think that, or is that what I've been trained to believe, trained to think? It's a process. It's a process.
Amazing.
Unprogramming. Accident.
Yes.
The program.
I love helping people unprogram, especially kids now, because that's basically, I really wasn't aware of that term programming when I was doing this with Nick when he was 15. Honest to God,
You
I
wouldn't have
was
known
not.
all the intricacies that were in, part of all the setup. It's only now we're learning all of that stuff the last few
Yeah,
years. So how did you
right.
go? Finish that story, Sarita. How did you go how did it end?
So how it ended is that 3 weeks that he was supposed to have his phone taken away ended up being 9 months. Okay. And it's not because I said it's going to be 9 months. That's literally what it took to accomplish those three things that were on the original contract. Who knew? But it required me to make massive adjustments in my own life so that I could help him. So, if you send somebody, whether it's an adult or a child, to rehab, right? They're not walking into an empty building that says rehab. There's a whole staff there of people who are helping and that are trained, right? So I had to, again, follow that model and say, well, I'm the staff at the rehab center, and this person is here. So I had to adjust my life, which meant I had to quit my full-time job. Now, could I afford it? No. But I don't know what no means. I said to myself, am I working to live? Or, it was all those questions that you ask yourself. And I said, did I have a child to just like give him up to addiction so that I could go work and make money? And I sat there and I said, I've got to figure out how to make money in a different way. But if I have this high stress job, we're going to lose. He and I are going to lose this game called life.
And that is huge, Sarita, that you made that choice, because I think parents think about it, but they come up with majority that, that I speak to, they're just like, but I can't do it. So what really, I guess, was the tipping point where you went, I'm going to make this decision? Because, you weren't in the financial position to be able to do it, but you still did it. What pushed you over
Well,
the edge?
I mean, first I sat down with my finances and I said, is that a true statement? I can't do this. Because what does that mean? Or am I programmed to always get the paycheck in the mail, right? So I sat down with my finances and I said, well, I could probably do this for 6 months, right? And just not have as much savings. So that statement that I kept making, I can't do that, I can't do that, that was a lie that I was telling myself. And so when I quit the job, I already knew I didn't want to be in the Apple environment, because then I would also be a part of something that I was definitely out of alignment with now. So listen, I have an iPhone. There's lots that I love about technology, but that job required somebody to literally be available 24/7. And so I was out of alignment with that. With myself, I was like, what kind of a job do you have to be on call 24/7? Well, every job I've had for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say out of alignment, it was for me, like I'm not living. And so here I want to raise this person who lives and thinks for himself, and yet I'm not even modeling that.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful.
Lots of little truth bombs, man.
They hurt. They hurt, those ones.
We do. So when I came up with, like, I think I could get away with this for 6 months and potentially consult, just bring in some money. That was a decision, right? And so I made it because I already prioritized this bucket over here, which was this human being. And so then what really happened with me is my life started to change. I realized I was addicted to working, to being dependable to somebody else, to having a job that, was pretty considered a great job. But then I had to figure out, well, now what am I going to do with my time if I'm not going anywhere? So it literally showed me all of the things I was asking Nick to do. I literally had to find out what my passion was outside of work. And so that kind of spurred me on to, I'm going to have to engage him in this, and we're going to have to find things that we like to do together, or else we're going to hate each other and we're going to be in this back and forth cat mouse thing. And since we already had a good relationship, what I looked at it like, I get a chance to know that we had something good and repair what has happened in between this time that I was gone and he was gone. And that repair I have to be patient with.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the first things I did was say, look, I know you love watching shows, movies, or, TV shows, and that's something that you do alone. And I don't really watch shows because I'm working all the time. So why don't we each pick a show and we'll watch it together every night, right? After dinner. So we'll cook dinner together, and then we'll either watch the show during dinner, like preferably after, but I had to make some allowances. But Benita, the thing that did was it allowed him to pick shows that he liked, and I had to watch them. That was the deal, right? No matter if I said, I don't want to watch that, that's so violent. He's like, come on, you promised. So there was this accountability thing, right? And
Yeah.
he had rights. And then I got to do the same thing, right? So just for example, the show that he picked first was Game of Thrones, which I was like, I don't want to watch that. Violence and naked people and and he knew that he was like, I'm going to see if she skirts out of this. So we watched the whole season of Game of Thrones together. And you know what that did for me? That allowed me to go, this is what they're watching. This is what these young kids are watching on their phone, on the bus, everywhere they can. They can go backwards and see a sexual scene over and over and over again and not even really know what it is. So it gave me the opportunity to talk to him about male female relationships, what rape is and what love is, what war is and what peace is. Like all these things that, because I didn't realize Game of Thrones was such a mythological like story of war and empire building and history, which is true, right? I didn't realize that because I had my own bias about what a violent show it was. And so because we were doing things together, I would hit pause and go, I'm making note to self. I hope you never do that to a girl, because you will be with a girl. But that's the other thing that I want to talk to you about, porn, right? Because if you think that love is what you see on porn, so I can't even tell you, I could go on and on and on, but it was like we got to know each other again. I was literally the person he depended on again. So, we think we have to take care of our babies, which we do, right? But if we don't nurture and help develop these babies at that adolescent age, then we've basically got a chronic, bigger baby.
Oh, that's what we've got a world of at the moment. How did he feel about you having those conversations with him?
Well, in the beginning, just like anything, he's like, oh my God,
How
do you have to,
embarrassing, Mom.
God, do you have to just like, can't you just like be quiet about anything? And I was like, but
And
I'm
then,
and then I'm like, come on, just, well, the thing about Game of Thrones, because he'd seen it so many times, is there would be times where I would say to him also to neutralize it, right? Well, wait a minute, who's the king of this empire and who's trying to kill who? And that's when he would feel really empowered, because then he would hit pause and go, okay, this person is from this, right? And do you see this and this and this? I'm like, oh yeah. And I had my notebook and he was like, yeah, take notes because this is really complicated, little mama, for you.
yeah,
And I was
you got
like,
to
it is.
get it, Mom.
So it really leveled the playing field in so many ways, which I think parents don't always give themselves permission to do, because we're in the role of, do it my way or over coddling them. But this became, a way for me to say, well, you don't really know anything about certain things, and I don't know many things about many things. So we get to actually share with
Yeah.
each other.
And
Wasn't always perfect.
yeah. And I love that story as well, Sarita, because I have a real problem. I'm totally guilty of this, is because I get hung up on things. I'm like, I don't like tech, like I don't like TV because I don't really watch TV. I don't like the social media thing. And so, but that hinders me because then I don't see the quality from it. And your story shows that, yeah, you're watching TV, which I'm like is so numbing. But if you're doing it together, there's a conversation there. There's so many conversations that it leads to later. Like that's amazing. So that's definitely my growth is not, because sometimes I can be real, no, it's bad, and not saying that it's bad or good, but just not, there's opportunity in everything. And the
Yeah.
key is that you're doing it together, and that is the human connection. Even though you're both watching TV, it creates conversation. And yeah, so it's good for me to hear. So thanks for that.
Well, let's just put it this way. I chalked it up as one of those other things where I would categorize myself as a non-judgmental person until again, I thought, whoa, I didn't realize I had so many judgments about things.
Yeah, I do that too. I'm like, oh, I've not got to shut it down, because I'm like, no tech, no nothing. And then I hear these beautiful stories, looking at parents that are really engaged with their kids, the unschooling movement, but they're
Yeah.
really engaged, and they're like, well, there is no, if they're playing video games, I'm like, no video games. But they play it until they're sick of it, and they learn things from it. Like there's a story about he was playing video games for so long, and then he's like, oh, I want to learn the piano. So he got a keyboard and he learned it like that, like really um, complicated pieces. And she
Yeah.
asked him, how do you know how to do that? And he goes, well, it's the same as when you're on a controller. Like your controllers, and so now I've just put that same way a brain thinks about, moving around all those places when you're playing the video game onto piano. I'm like, wow, okay, yeah, there's opportunity in everything. It just, I guess it depends on the environment and the people and the connection at the same time. Yeah, that's what I'm taking out of it.
Well,
What do you
that's
think?
just it. Well, I agree. And if you think about every generation supposedly has this rift between the older and the younger, right? So whether it's rock and roll music, right, in the 60s was, oh, that music's bad.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yet these kids of the 60s were like, it was making it, they loved it, right? It represented so much. So this is just another version of that we have, no idea what it is. But Nick did the same thing with me. Once we got into a groove of, it was almost like we didn't have to talk about the addiction anymore, because that was really starting to wane off, because he knew I wasn't going to give the phone back. Okay. So once he knew that, he had a more respect for me. And that is a component that I think a lot of parents and caretakers don't understand, that we cannot command and demand respect from anybody. We earn it, even from a child, right?
Mm-hmm.
So once he knew that phone was gone, what was he going to do? He couldn't go get a new one unless he stole one, right? And he's not a thief. But going back to, at some point, he said, after the 9 months, the video game thing came up, and he said, "Mom, can you just play this one video game?" And I said, I hate video games. And he's like, Mom, come on, you've never played one, so how can you hate one? And I was like, I don't know how to use those controllers, and I really want you to stay off the video game as much as you are. And he's like, come on, Mom. And then again, I remembered, right? And I said, okay, let's do this. Again, boy, was I wrong. I get to course correct myself. I had no idea how much they're learning.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I mean, if you're playing the right ones,
Yeah.
it's a learning opportunity. The dexterity on these controllers.
Mhm.
I mean, Nick can play instruments and do things with his fingers, because I don't move mine like that. And
No.
I never, right? But I thought the biggest thing with him on the video game, sorry if I'm all over the map, was I had no idea he was earning points to be a good guy. And at one point, like on one, I'll get the name of it. On one of the games, he said, I could be a lot wealthier if I were the villain. And he goes, but did you notice who I am? And I said, oh, I didn't really notice. And he goes, yeah, I'm one of the good guys. And so I just thought to myself, this is how we do it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
We literally have to engage ourselves and get off our own programming. And like you always say, always, we have to do our own inner work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you were to ask Nick what he took away from those 9 months, what would he say?
Well, he would say, I had no idea how much having an outside passion was going to like spark my joy. Right. But so his outside passion became tennis. Right. So I had to go play with him. And then, he was already on the tennis team, but he was just kind of just skimming by everything, just putting in he just wasn't one of those kids that was just going to over effort anything.
Yeah.
And
I'm just doing the
that's fine.
things so I can buy time to get on my phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but he really, really enjoyed tennis a lot, and he's really good at it. And so, just like the Game of Thrones thing where I was learning from him and he felt really good about himself, it was the same thing with tennis. I didn't realize how potentially pressure cooker like tennis was at his school. And, he's not a big kid. So there are some kids who are bigger than him and they work out and they can just like smash the ball and, put a hole through his chest. So he was good, but he was never going to be that strong varsity tennis player. So again, when he was playing with me, and I'm good, but I'm not competitive. So
Yeah.
he just had so much fun winning, right? It was just fun.
And he got to like craft his skill and
Yeah. And he
yeah.
felt good, right? Because he did have a win. And I wasn't one of those people that says, well, I suck. So therefore, no wonder you won. I was like, you're getting really good. You're getting really good.
And what happened after those 9 months? He found his passion. What did you see a change? Did he revert back after he got his phone? What happened after going forward in the years it's been?
Well, so now everybody at school knew that Nick had no phone, right? And
I love
there was
how like, I love how like the whole school knows.
the whole school knew. Everybody knew. I mean, and there was this
Wow.
up and down, with him, like, God, your mom. So, but in that time, let's just say he did not lose his social standing with his friends. In fact, I think his true nature was coming out, right? And so there was a side of him that he got to show his friends that was different than just on the phone.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
honestly, I think they're all a little jerky when they're on, like, right? So what happened was,
Well, very disengaged, which can
yeah,
make them seem jerky because they're disengaged. They're just,
just disengaged, right? No judgment. So, I was talking to his therapist who was monitoring all the changes, right? Who was seeing both of us, and not just for the phone, but other things. Because when you are dealing with addiction and big changes in your family, it is good to be under a therapist care or somebody who's done it before, because each case is different. There is no one size fits all because everybody is different. There are certain things that you can try, which is what I try to help people with. But I really am weary of how many programs there are to deactivate the addiction. They're
yeah,
it's I kind of see it as the spiritual Costco right now. And
yeah.
that right. Um so he was just more respectful, and his grades went up, and he had outside passion. So I was sitting there, one day I pulled the contract out, which I had forgotten about. And I don't think I was even keeping track of how long it had been, because that wasn't the focus anymore,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
right? And if he needed to use a phone, I let him use my phone once in a while. But even I changed. So the bottom line is, I said, all right, I have to give this thing back to you. You've earned it. And he was like, are you kidding? And I said, no. And I said, look, this has been an incredible journey. And I almost started crying. I was like, I had no idea that we were actually gonna like each other more. This could have gone sideways in so many ways, right? And I was like, I just think you're the neatest person. And his sweetness, he was like, oh, little mama, don't start crying. He goes, I'm going to be an addict right away. And I said, well, I know, but at least you're going to be an addict in recovery, which means, you're going to be at an age where I'm not going to be controlling all these things. So you already know what this means to your life when you are under something else. And this isn't going to be the only thing you're addicted to, right? And that was before Juul, that little nicotine thing, became big. Remember Juul? Look up Juul. Maybe they didn't do this in Australia. Juul was like a vaporizing cigarette.
Well, we've got vape.
Yeah, it's vape.
Is it
But
vape?
Juul was created to target the youth.
Wow. All the things.
All the things.
Yeah,
So he got his phone back. I would say that he was not the same,
yeah.
because he already had a level of awareness, and he wanted to be in check. Now, he's had ups and downs, right? So I kind of consider that something like falling off the wagon, and then getting back on. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
if, I said, this is for you and your life, right? I can't, at some point, again, I'm going to repeat it again. I know there's going to be a point, and it could even be next year, that I can't make you do something.
Mm.
You know? I mean, you could get so frustrated that you don't want to live with me anymore. And I will say, I was very aware of sort of this growing turbulence between parents and their children.
Mhm.
And that wasn't always so easy. So
Mhm.
schools were stepping in and almost like mediating to a degree that I thought was
Oh,
really unhealthy and very controlling. And so that was another impetus for me to say, I'm the mom here until like 18. I only have this limited amount of time.
mhm, mhm. And you bringing that up is so spot on, because that's what I'm seeing as part of, the research and stuff like the school is, and it's been done that again on purpose, but that it comes in and it's taking control. I don't like the word control, but
I felt bad the
caretaking,
other way.
it's the sole authority is the school versus the parents. It's like, how did they do that? But again, it's the little bit, little bit, little bit, little bit, to the point where then you've just confirmed that for you to feel that way, that school is coming in to step in against
That's how
family matters, it's just like weird.
Well, and you can imagine if I said it like this is why, sometimes when I stop you and say allowed or authority, it's because these are trigger words with me. Because I would
Yeah,
say,
good.
who's
Pick them
doing
up.
this? Right. And I just saw the amount of like, evil eyes that were made at me. Like, Sarita, how dare you say that this school would do something that awful? And I said, I'm not saying the school is awful. I'm not saying, his teacher is awful. I'm saying I'm feeling a loss of like my family ownership. I feel like I'm giving something away. So just like if you're in a relationship with somebody and then you wake up and go, I think I'm losing myself, right?
Mm.
The person isn't making you do that. They are exhibiting behaviors and tendencies to take a person who might not have the self-awareness that they are, what's the word, they're going along with it because I'm programmed, right? So I had to go, whoa, 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 right? this is a, this is
Well,
not
it's a
good.
form of also like disengagement, or not consciously being actively participant in your life. That's
Yeah,
what I see it is. It's like I'm not actively participating in my own life because I've kind of stepped away from my own life and I've handed over to someone else. And I think that's what's happened in the school system is parents unknowingly have actually disengaged from their role as a parent and handed it to the school because it's just so much easier, and they haven't even noticed it's happened because it's just school's just changed a little bit, and to
yeah,
the point where it's like, oh, I thought I got to ask, like even the forms I was telling you about my friend, she goes, the forms have changed, they tell me what they're
mm-hmm.
doing. It's like, no, you're asking me, you're meant to
Mm-hmm.
be asking me with this form, can you do this with my child? You're not telling me. And I think
Yeah,
those little things are so minute, and if you're not hyper aware, you're just missing it.
100%. And look at how many parents are working, right? So
Yeah.
school has, like you said, little by little, and I know we're getting on to, like, we always do this, right? We end up on the phone for so long. But I think so many of these things are so important because, again, I really try not to blame, shame. I mean, we're all going to have to get ourselves out of this or not.
We
But
allowed it to happen. We've all participated in it because if we didn't, it wouldn't have ever happened.
yeah,
Like with anything that's going on right now. So that's I guess, the taking responsibility. It's like, yeah, we've been had,
yeah,
completely been had, or else it wouldn't have been able to happen. If we were on it and we're consciously participating in our own lives, it couldn't have happened.
that's right.
But like you just said, it's so many people are working, they're working full time. That's again being able to happen on purpose with the whole movement of, women being out of work, which is fantastic. But they did all that without having a supplement to, well, who's looking after the children. They're like, oh, we can do it. So that was all by design as well. And it's like only when you're able to take a huge step back or above and look at the whole thing, that you can really see what's going on, versus looking at that movement or that agenda. Or, yeah.
Yeah, so it's the convenience and it's the sense of progress, right? So even women going to work, that was a progressive effort. So I always just try to say with anything, did it move us along with this progress, which everybody loves the word progress, which started in the Industrial Revolution, right? Everything that was that way was just sort of, just embraced.
Yeah. Well, they like to give us key phrases that we regurgitate.
They love it.
I love it, because it's all a marketing campaign.
That's it. We live in an
And we're such little like parrots. We just like regurgitate. So yeah. Ah!
So here we are, right? And that, like I always say, it's a brilliant plan. It worked, and humans are so well documented, and we're so easily programmable, but we're also uh, we have the right, we have the ability to what is that? We have free will, but everything can, the choices that we make to have or not have what we deserve, exercising your free will is challenging. But I think we've gotten to the point now today. I mean, from when you and I met, look at what's happened. Neither of us knew any of this was going to happen. I sure didn't. But when you start connecting the dots, then you cannot unsee the plan. You just either choose to unsee it, or your programming is so severe that you can't see it. But for those of us, it's a choice.
Even if it's an unconscious choice, it's still a choice, because that's what you're saying. It's like free will. We've all got free will, free choice. So you choosing not to see it is a choice. So we've got to accept that. Which is maybe a lot more compassionate. Instead of like at the start of this years ago, I was like mad and frustrated. I'm like, what do you see? I'm like, well, I've got to accept that that's what you're choosing. So that's your path, your evolution here, or non-evolution, but that's still a choice. So who am I to say what you're meant to do? I don't know what you're meant to do. I am understanding more of what I'm meant to be doing. But
well, and that's what I love about you in all of this is, as we talk about that compassion, what we both are concerned about is that, well, that's your choice and that's not mine. But when your ability to make a choice is compromised because of the groupthink effort, right? That's when I start getting rabid, because you fight for your right, and we literally have to fight for our freedom right now. So these little things, just like, going back to this issue with Nick was never in trouble at school, or no administrator wrote a note and said, Sarita, you got to get with the program or he's out of here. None of those things that happened. But if they had happened, like what if they did? If somebody said, applied the pressure, what would I do? Would I buckle? Right? Because I have seen in the past where I've gone the way of the school authority, and it was so subtle that I didn't even know I was being led.
Yeah.
And that's where
that's key though as well, with what you're saying, Sarita, with oh my God, I've just lost it. See these little energies taking my thoughts. I've lost it.
Okay. Well, so you can be led down a path without even knowing it, right? And just like you were talking about the level of approvals that we have to do, and nobody's reading the small print. So we've become accustomed in so many ways to just sign on the dotted line for our convenience or to keep moving along.
Yeah.
And we know that, right? So our children, the fertility rate is plummeted everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's lots of things that are in coordination. And so there might be less kids right now in the next generations, unlike the baby boom, which I'm from, right? There just might be.
Or the
And
babies.
that's just how it's going to be. So,
It's I think it's really good that we know that you know you just said fight for our freedom, and
uh,
we got to courageously step up or be more of who we already are and shine more light. But your story, what I love about your story, a lot of things, and another one of them is that you didn't fight, you know, in the sense of fighting. You weren't writing letters to school, you weren't attacking Apple, you weren't doing all those things. You were just doing it with Nick, and you shining that light within your own house rippled because it changed his friends, it changed him, it changed, you know, the school's talking about it. So it's a perfect example that us just being more of who we are and shining our light does have a ripple effect, and it changes things on a huge scale. So
I
that's
mean, that's it.
beautiful.
Well, in everything that we're talking about, right? Our energy and our vibration and our
Mm.
frequency,
Yeah.
that's the energy of everything.
Mhm.
So we will constantly have things that we don't agree with and forces. But yeah, you're right. I mean, why I chose not to fight is it's a part of my personality. And you know, my all my jobs have required me to be unbelievably diplomatic. So that doesn't mean weak. That means, you know, I've had to hone those skills in. When I realized I could just apply those same skills to my own family, and sometimes I have to do that. When I say, "Oh, I can't do this," I'm like, okay, you do this really well in the business world, do this with your family, and you'll probably get somewhere. And I did. So you just brought it up. Nick did not lose his friends. We were not ostracized, but I will tell you, there's not a family in that school who did not know that we did this without banners. I wasn't sending out newsletters, but
And
people were
them
talking
just having
about
the conversation, Nick doesn't have a phone. Sarita's, his mum won't like that ripples. Like that's a good conversation. Even if they do nothing about it, even if they're saying bad stuff, it still planted a seed that someone's done that, that they can see through it. They're trying to,
it.
you know, do something better. Like that's changed the whole school and everyone in it without you having to fight in that old school, I guess, that dark, low vibrational energy.
Yeah.
You were just shining light.
Well, and remember, this is that kid, that individual got a chance to have a developing, you know, time in his life, nurtured,
Mhm.
like Johnny's kids from the beginning, right? So if we look at it that way, why wouldn't we want our children to have the best opportunity to be
Yeah.
developed?
Mhm.
That's what those 9 months in the womb are, right? They track it all. They say, okay, this is when the ears are developing, this is when the legs, and that's why that's so important. So why do we forget about the importance of development when they come out?
Like, oh, they're out. They made it. Done.
Right.
Oh, so good, Sarita. So good. Lots to think about, or just trust your intuition. You trusted your intuition and you stayed
Yeah.
true to it.
If you don't stay true to yourself, I think, you know, that's the first pathway to um, just plenty of opportunities to not stay true to self. And we all do, we can do it. It's the most important thing that any of us can be doing right now,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That's all. That's what we can do, I guess. And that's if we were to finish on like, you know, we started off with talking about the social dilemma and the humane technology, and it's like, well, they didn't have a solution, and it's like, well, what's our solution? Our solution is go in, shine your light. That's all you need to do, because that's making a huge amount of positive impact, raising that vibration by us just being more of who we already are.
Agree. And, you know, Benita, before we go, I did talk to, like I said, I had a therapist, but I even had to educate the therapist on what my true self was, or else I would have gotten steamrolled by the psychiatric.
Yeah.
world, because they have specific things too. And again, none of this is bad. Every institution has their role in this. There are a lot of people that are complicit. There are a lot of people operating and not knowing what the consequences of what they're doing is
Yeah.
doing.
That's the majority. They don't
Yeah,
know.
they don't know.
They think
So
they're doing well.
they
They think they're
do.
doing good things. Yeah. Yeah.
So, as I went out and started to really sort of look at the experts in these fields, like the Center for Humane Technology and other speakers who were speaking, I got little tidbits from everyone and then put together my own, like, okay, so that I wasn't following a leader. Because at the end of the day, especially with your own child, or if you're, I took care of other people's kids for many, many years before I had my own child. And the way I helped grow those children was no different than what I did with mine, because every child, is our responsibility in a way. And if we see
Yeah.
them harmed, then we're going to say something. So it was up to me to just really search and not look for a guru and a leader, and say, in this situation, this is my, I'm responsible for this individual. And so, yeah, I don't agree with that. And I don't know how to do that, but I agree with that. And to form, that's the great way you can make your own little roadmap,
Yeah.
rather than jumping to the phone every time something doesn't work out, saying, well, I tried that and that didn't work. Your children are not an experiment like that work or don't work. It's like they're growing.
They work. They they are just, they're beautiful light beings, aren't they? They completely work. We've just
Yeah,
got to nurture them.
yeah,
Yeah. And there is no religion to join. There is no outside authority. There is just, you know, go within, go with your heart, go with what
yeah.
brings you joy. That's it. It's actually so simple. And we've been so convoluted into thinking it's so much more. And there's all these steps. And I've gone down all those paths, for the last 2 decades of like, how about this? How about this? And it's like, oh, the answer is so simple and is within us. We
Mhm.
don't even believe it or know it to be true, because we've been taken off path. But I'm not blaming anyone. I've got to go, yeah, I have been, but I
Yeah,
choose not to anymore.
right. That's it.
And that's it. Done. Well, Sarita, as always, awesome combo.
Ah, awesome. You're doing such great work.
We could talk for
That's-
days.
I mean, that's what happens. That's what happens. That's why it's so hard for us to get together, because we know what we're up for. But that's the other thing about all of this, as we were talking about speed, right? Literally, the solution, the way out, is to take the time. So you don't go in words at a 2-day yoga retreat and then have all the answers,
Yeah, yeah,
or what.
yeah.
I think it is having conversations like this, and so and redefining how we spend our time.
Until we've done the reprogramming enough that it becomes more natural. I can definitely see a huge difference from 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, 6 months ago. I can see the change and the progress of it is becoming a lot more natural
Yeah,
to go in and to just be peaceful.
totally.
It's a process. Like you said, it's a process. It's not I didn't go to a retreat and go,
I mean,
we
yeah.
still got to do a society.
Well, somebody asked me after, at some point, they said, Sarita, why don't you, go to um, a yoga retreat or something for a month? You've been working for all these years and you deserve to take some time off. And I said, I would love to do something like that. I really, really would. But I think I need to go inwards, and because I haven't done that in so long. And that means being bored in my own house, not being, the phone just wasn't ringing every 2 minutes. Sarita, we need you. We need you to do this. And da da da. Like when that phone stopped ringing, I was like, what do I do now? I mean,
Oh, for 2 to 3 years, it was like after I left my corporate job, it was just like recalibrating, not not being busy, like not living that busy hustle life. It's like, and letting go of that. We've talked about this, of the not doing, like,
Oh,
like that took years to unprogram from. It's
yeah,
still there, but nowhere like nothing like it was.
nothing like it was.
Nothing. And I can, so because there's that observation, isn't it? I can actually observe it and go, oh, I know when I'm doing it now, where before
Yeah,
I didn't know. It's like, have I
right.
gone back into it? Yeah, I'm back in it. Versus before, yeah, I can see a huge difference. But that's taken years.
Ah, well, and going back to that question or that topic when we were talking about when I said I had to literally sit down with my finances and see if I was telling a lie or not to myself or an excuse, right? I can't stop. I think this is a huge opportunity also for people to do that, right? To go, what's really important to us right now? And I know people are doing it. I know they are, but to
They are.
another level. And I think that we need help. Like we need to help each other. So there are some people who are in financial positions that could actually help. It's just like, I help artists and entrepreneurs with their startups because I already know that starving artists and entrepreneurs aren't going to make it because you do need a significant amount of capital and operational foundation to make it in this world, right? So when I did that, I started talking to people who were who could invest in
Mhm.
projects like this. I had the same idea with this digital dilemma that we're having. That's it. We should call it digital dilemma, right? Because it is a digital dilemma. And that is, in order for this to really be one of the solutions is to have people invest in helping parents do this. So it's the same thing as when I said to Johnny, you know, Apple can give permission to the whole world to put the device down, not away. That may have not been a financial incentive. It was a permission with time.
But it also was an ethical incentive that they're not
No,
interested.
but I didn't
Is
know, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I
that's
didn't
true.
know.
Isn't
I
that, isn't it?
really,
I forget that
I,
before that time, it's like, of course you're ethical. No, you're not.
exactly. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, they're gonna love this. This is gonna be so great because
And
I
he's
want.
like,
Right? He was just like cuckoo. They
"Cool."
said she was cuckoo, and I
Because
am cuckoo.
he must know, because you wouldn't create something if you thought it was amazing and you're a creator, like if you're a designer and you make clothes, you make them for your kids. You know what I mean? Like you love them. For you to
Yes,
design something that is changing the world and not give it to your child,
that's right.
you know, yeah.
So this was great.
This
I'd
was
love.
fantastic. That's probably like the best we've spoken, and it being like succinct. Like we went off, but it was all like, it was the
We tried.
story. I loved it. It was perfect. It's actually how you would write a book. You just need to transcribe this and get your bit out of it, because that's the book. It's you talking about a story, getting
Mhm,
Nick off, but
mhm.
it went into the other realms that are
Mhm.
like in line. There's your book.
Well, I need your help, right? Because as I've said, like a lot of the things with me are I didn't know because I do walk around with a sense of Pollyanna curiousness.
I'm going
That's
to stop
because,
recording.
yeah, it's because of my mother. She really raised us to play outside, and